Welcome to the Leading Conversations podcast, sponsored by the Excel Leadership Network. On each episode, JD Pairing will have conversations with church planting pastors and leaders from around the country. You can learn more about how to connect with Excel at the end of this podcast. Let's join JD now and listen in on this leading conversation.
Welcome to another episode of the Excel Leadership Podcast, Leading Conversations. Today, we are very excited to have Ken and Carolyn Primeau on from Indianapolis, Indiana. Thanks for being here, guys.
It's great to be with you.
Hey, I've never asked this, but Primeau, what a great last name. Does it mean the best?
First? It means first, the best.
Number one.
All the humble things.
Wow. Did somebody change it, or is it just you were born?
As far as I can tell, that was my great grandfather's last name all the way through. Yeah, wow. It's a French last name, and I grew up in Canada, so someone had moved from France to the French Canadian area, and that's how I descended.
So, did you grow up with just an extra level of confidence, Ken, with that last name?
I don't think I thought much about the meaning of my last name growing up, so it's been more as an adult.
Well, let's talk about you guys growing up. Tell us your story, each of you, about how you came to Christ.
Ladies first.
All right. So I was fortunate enough to grow up in a very God-loving home. My parents both loved the Lord and I have three sisters, and so they raised us to love the Lord, and church was very, very important to the point where it was like, nothing will take the place of church. So we don't do sports on Wednesday night or Sundays at all. But I think that as legalistic as that might have been, I think it also ingrained in me the priority that church and my relationship with the Lord is. And I think it wasn't just about church. I think my parents did a really good job of like mirroring that. It's not just attending church, it's also throughout the week of daily devos or praying and all the disciplines of having a relationship with the Lord. So I grew up, church was like my favorite thing. Like my sisters and I went to every church camp, every VBS that there was. Right. What?
I just said, all right. That's
yeah.
Great.
So it was, and to the point where like truly and people would make comments about it, but like our punishment if we did something wrong was like we couldn't go to youth group because that's how much we loved it. So that was kind of my vibe of church growing up. I had an amazing youth pastor, and I think he gave me a really beautiful, positive image of what ministry actually looked like. And so I just remember like there was nothing about my relationship with the Lord or going to church that hindered me from sharing that or from just being who I was and living out of that. And then going to college.
Quick story. She had such a strong administrative gift that as a high school student, she would organize the bus, a seating arrangement to go to camp, and hand it to the youth pastor. Okay. He's like, oh, thanks so much.
Okay. Part of that was I invited a lot of friends and I wanted to make them feel loved and not have anybody feel left out, because that's also who I am. And so in order to prevent people from feeling left out, I organized them so that everyone would have a place to sit and somebody to sit by. So that was...
Did you set it up so you got to sit next to the cute guys?
Oh, yeah. All the time. Yep. 100%.
Is that how you met Ken?
No. We actually met in college. So fast forward to college, still very strong relationship with the Lord. But that's probably when my faith truly became my own, as far as like, I went through a season where I kind of questioned everything that I had been taught and had grown up with, and all the rules that my parents had, and everything about my relationship with the Lord and why I did the things that I did and why I lived the lifestyle that I did. And I lived overseas in Germany for a year. And it was during that year where I was kind of taken away from family, taken away from my sisters, who I'm really close to, taken away from my parents. And I just felt like the Lord allowed certain things to go on during that year that really allowed me to question everything and come to a place where it was like, is this because your parents raised you this way? Or is this because this is what you're going to choose from here on out? And so that was probably my like breaking point of like, okay, this is real. This is not just because I've been told this my whole life, but now as an adult, this is what I'm choosing and this is what I want to live in. So that's kind of been my faith journey.
Mm-hmm. And I've had somewhat similar in terms of being raised in a Christian home. And I like to think about it of like a swimming pool, if you use that as a metaphor. Like I grew up in the swimming pool of faith, but it was my freshman year of college really when I went into the deep end and started becoming a disciple and following Jesus. But I feel like I've always had a relationship with God from a young age, always had faith in Jesus from a young age, and largely due to my parents and upbringing. But I grew up in Winnipeg, Canada. So Winterpeg is what we call it. It's the coldest city in the world with a population over 500,000 people. So if it's colder, there's less people. And so I grew up there, Christian home. I have 3 older brothers, and we grew up attending a Baptist church in Winnipeg. And then actually it's interesting, the beginning seeds of church planting for me started when I was 9. My family had left that church. One of the pastors planted a church in our house. And so we kind of had a home church that outgrew our house, and we started renting a facility. And that was my church experience for 4 years. And there's a church in Winnipeg still today that had started in my parents' house. So that was kind of the beginning seeds of that.
That's wonderful. That's a wonderful story.
Yeah.
If a church is planted in your house, you pretty much have to go.
Exactly. We got stuck in the basement. It was like the kids ministry thing. And like one volunteer would get sent down into the dingy basement to hang out with us kids. And I remember, it was a blast. So then my family moved to San Jose, California, and I went to high school there, and we got plugged in with a great church, great youth ministry. I was worship leader there at the church and on Tuesday nights for the student ministry. And I really lived a hypocritical life through high school. So I had like my church friends, be the student leader, and then I was at a public school that no one from my church was there. And then I had my school friends and just lived kind of a double lifestyle through high school, which really ate away at me inside. But it was just, this was, one foot in the church world and one foot in living in the flesh. And that was kind of my high school experience. And then I went to Pepperdine University and there got into, for the first time, in a guy's small group. So through high school, we'd have like 100 and something students at our high school ministry, but it was all large group gathering. Like there was no smaller group discipleship. And so for the first time, I'm sitting around with the Bible open with a group of guys talking about what was going on in my life. And that just started to shape me. And it was like this hypocritical lifestyle for the first time, being able to confess to people and talk about it. And that year for me really became the year of, I guess, moving to the deep end of I'm choosing to be a disciple, and I want, to the best of my ability and the Holy Spirit, like for my faith and my life to actually align. And that's the year we met and started dating by the end of the freshman year. Met her early on, but it took me 8 months to reel her in to start dating me. But April 1, we started dating end of freshman year.
Mm-hmm.
No fooling. And then, and you didn't administrate that then? You didn't make that happen, Carolyn?
No, I didn't. I was waiting till his faith was deeper, and then I grabbed him.
Okay. Well, talk about ministry then. How did you guys get plugged into
ministry
life?
I mean, so she had been involved at church her whole life and organizing the youth group bus since her teenage years. And then we both served at a college ministry at Pepperdine, and I led worship there. And my freshman year, spring break, instead of going off and partying in Florida or going to Mexico to party, like many freshmen in college do, I went on my first missions trip. I went to Panama, and we were there. We were helping this American missionary who was like in this small village where he had planted a tiny church in the middle of a rainforest. It's like the typical like missionary thing that you'd think, stereotypical. That's actually what it was. And he lived in this like hut, and we were there like helping dig out an outhouse toilet. Like it was manual labor that we were doing with a bunch of college students. But the whole point of that is that while we were there, I felt like the Lord was asking me, Ken, would you be willing to do this for me? Like, would you be willing to move to another country, give up everything you have? This guy, I think he was about 40 and single. I'm like, he gave up even marriage. Like, he gave up electricity and all this stuff. Would you be willing to do this for me? And my honest answer was no. And I started wrestling with that because it was like, on one hand, like, Lord, you have my life. I surrender. Whatever you have for me, but not Panama. Whatever you have for me, but I want to get married. Whatever you have for me, but like, let's keep it within reason and preferably in California. So, that was my honesty. So for a number of months, I wrestled with that and got to a place in my journey with God that I really felt like I surrendered and said, I'm willing to say yes. And I felt like God said in that moment, like, okay, Panama is not what I have for you, but that's the heart that I want, is like a willingness to go wherever. And that really started the journey for ministry for me, because I was planning on being a high school, either music teacher or a high school math teacher at the time. And so I was double majoring in music and math at Pepperdine. And that began to shift my heart towards, God, whatever you have for me. And I first thought I was going to be a worship pastor because music was my background, playing guitar, singing, had led worship often up to that point. And then God just started to steer me over time towards teaching ministry. And I kind of grappled with it for a number of years, even while I was a young adult pastor, I'm still questioning, am I supposed to be a worship pastor? Am I in the wrong seat on the bus? And then God just kept affirming and affirming and affirming through other people. And I just kept walking that path. So I didn't have here was the call moment. It was more of a just continual surrender, walking with God, and God just meandered me into being a lead pastor and church planter. You want to add anything to that? Did you know when we were getting married, it's like, we're going into ministry? And
no, I mean, I think for me, growing up, my plan was I'm going to get married and have babies. That was my plan. So there was never a career. There was never this is what I want to do. It was what do you want to do when you grow up? I'm I'm going to be a mom. I want to take care of my kiddos. So for me, going to college was I need to get a degree just because that's what everybody says. But it was really the end goal was I'm going to eventually get married and have kids, and I'm going to be a stay-at-home mom. So when I met Ken, and he was, that experience of him feeling like the Lord was hey, you're going to go into ministry. I loved church ministry. So for me, it was great. I love that. I originally definitely thought it was music ministry.
Is this church camp all the time? Is that what we're going to do?
I was so excited. I get to go to church camp all the time. So for me, it was okay, we'll do worship ministry. I love supporting you in that. I don't have to play the guitar, so we're good. And then when he came to me, it was yeah, I'm going to preach. I'm great. Okay, sure. I still don't have to get up and preach. So that's awesome. You can preach. We're still going to do church ministry, and that's great. So I don't know that I really had this whole thing of hey, Carrie, when you grow up, you're going to be in church ministry. But I've always loved church, and I've always loved ministry, and I love Jesus, and I love our family. So for me, it was great. That's been the desire of my heart from the get-go. So
it's always been there. Great. Now, you got into church planting with Beach Point Church in Huntington Beach doing a site, right?
Yeah.
Talk about the call to church planting, or was that just a call as part of the church there, or how did that happen?
Yeah. I mean, now looking back on it, I just see the seeds that God placed all along the way of the church plants in Canada that I didn't even realize we were church planting. It was just, as a 9-year-old, this is church. And then when we went to Hawaii, so we got married and moved to Hawaii, and I worked as a young adult pastor at a church plant that was planting churches. It's called New Hope.
Oh, yeah.
We were at New Hope Diamond Head. So Wayne Cordero was the lead pastor, and we were at one of the sites doing young adult ministry. And so they're just growing the heart for multiplication and church planting. And their model was video venues that then went with a campus pastor. And then the campus pastor started preaching more and more and less of the videos. And if you're not familiar with Wayne Cordero, Wayne's world-class communicator. So he grew a church plant in Oahu that grew to about 10,000. And then they started planting churches, through the whole process, and planting sites that would later become their own standalone churches. So they did the video venue, then the campus pastor would preach more and more, and then that church would become a separate entity.
Let's back up again. Back up a little bit. I've been to the Diamond Head campus. So how does that happen? How do you go, oh, God's calling me to Hawaii, to Diamond Head? How did that happen?
So when we moved to San Jose, at our church that we got connected to there, I met a guy who became my best friend, JP Lamb, and his family moved to Hawaii our junior year of high school. So his mom became the women's pastor. She still leads the women's ministry at New Hope, Oahu. And so his family moved there. As my best friend, their family to me. So for 2 years, we were apart, and they had moved out there. And he had done like the nation tour for colleges our sophomore year of high school, and came back with all these pamphlets. And one of them was Pepperdine. It was like a trifold of like ocean view. He's like, Ken, we should go here. I was like, yep, that's where God's calling this Canadian kid to go to school. So it's the only school I applied to. And we both went there, and we roomed together all 4 years in college. And so when God was calling me into ministry, I went back to my San Jose church between my sophomore and junior year and interned there with the worship pastor. And then between my junior and senior year, I interned at New Hope, and still was planning on being worship ministry. So I spent a 3-month internship there, and they placed me on Sundays. I was helping Sunday night with their student ministry, and Wayne's son was the youth pastor at the time, so I was helping build a student band on Sunday nights. And then Sunday mornings, they placed me at New Hope Diamond Head. And so I interned there for 3 months, and then they offered me a job for after I graduated. So all senior year, I was convincing her to marry me, and then we moved to Hawaii and started out in ministry.
That's incredible.
And then for the past 15 years, it's been moving away from Hawaii, and we're really upset with God about that.
Yes, Pepperdine, Hawaii, Huntington Beach, Indianapolis. All the places.
So after that, to connect the dots, so Carolyn had grown up at Beach Point Church in Fountain Valley, California, which is in Orange County, and her youth pastor is Bill Stafiri. So Bill had been saved at that church as a 14-year-old, then went through the student ministry, then became the youth pastor for 17 years. He officiated our wedding. And so we moved from California to California so I could go to seminary. I was going to Fuller Seminary after we left New Hope. I was a full-time student, and we were praying about where should we go to church. And we church hopped for a while, and we were checking out all these different places. And I was like, I don't want to go to your parents' church, like your family church where you grew up. We're going to go somewhere else. But Bill approached us and asked me to start a college ministry there. And God just affirmed it. I had dreams at night, God speaking to me, this is what you're supposed to do. So we said yes, and we started partnering with Beach Point, and then Bill became the senior pastor. And so we led the young adult ministry, love 20-somethings, invested in that age group for a long time. And the church grew, and I became an associate pastor. And then Bill was like, hey, if we grew to 800 or 900 people, what if we started a second location and you were the lead pastor? And I was not super excited about the whole idea. I was loving young adult ministry at the time, but I was like, God, if that's what you're calling me to. And kind of our life story has been all right, God, we're not coming up with strategic, amazing plans. It's we're surrendered and then just tell us the next step. And that's really been our journey. So we went to an assessment with you, JD, up at the Discovery Center in 2012 and got a green light to start the second location. And, but we weren't really ready yet. That was kind of just affirmation. Okay, God, you're calling us to do this, and when the right time comes. So then we did that in 2015, and we planted Beach Point's second campus in Huntington Beach. And then we did that for 3 years. And it was an amazing 3 years. It was a hard 3 years. We learned a lot from it, and we love the people that God reached through that, and we saw some great fruit that came from it. Mm-hmm. But we were set up tear down, and some of the mistakes we made was we were so close distance wise from Beach Point Fountain Valley. So we were in Huntington Beach. It's the next city over, but distance wise, we moved 3 locations because we were set up tear down, and we'd get booted from one spot to another. And so we were probably about 2 miles away. And so just distance wise, there was issues with that where we would get a family that would come and then they realize, oh, well, you got student ministry, 2 miles away, and then a family move over. So some of those types of things, challenges that we were having. But the church was doing fine. And we were a little over 100 people on a weekend. But we just felt like it was best for us, best for the church that we not continue doing that. So we merged everyone in, and they came back to, or for the first time, came to Beach Point and Fountain Valley and merged our staffs and everything. And then we were like, all right, God, what's next? And God called us to plant in Indiana, which we were trying to go tropical beach cities, and God didn't get that memo. And so we planted out here in 2020, in September 2020, in the midst of the pandemic, and we started a new location for Mercy Road. And it's been going amazing. So we're 18 months in and becoming Midwesterners.
How was that move for you, Carolyn?
Oh, it was rough. Yeah, it was real rough. It was, I feel like I held on as long as possible until the Lord was like, no, this is what you're doing. But I also feel like it was a cool process of listening to the Lord and kind of like what Ken was saying of like day by day, like, okay, God, continue to speak to us. Like we sense this, but we're not fully arrived with the plan yet. So we're just going to keep walking in steps. So what does that look like? And so for me, the journey and the taking it slow and feeling peace along the way is really what does it for me. Is like, I'm going to wait till I feel that total peace. And he's more visionary and like long term. So even when he sometimes thinks things or sees things down the road, I'm kind of like, let's pull the reins and let's do the process. And I think that that's really important. So originally, I mean, like literally it wasn't even on our radar. Like we were, open to churches that were 20 minutes away, 30 minutes away, maybe an hour away, but that was it. So when we got the call from Indiana, it was like, my literal response was heck no. Like there is no way. Like I am not moving to Indiana. And slowly the Lord was like, yeah, but what if and what if and what if? And I just think that it had to be this slow journey of listening to the Lord and him walking alongside me and guiding me to that end goal. So that's, I mean, the hardest part. I'm really close with my family. So I have 3 sisters that are in now California and Idaho, but at the time, right in the same city, and my parents. And so for me with 4 young kids, there were a lot of questions of like, yeah, but what about this? And what about this? And what about this? And God, how are you going to figure this one out? And how are you going to figure that one out? And the cool part has been, he's shown us in the past. So, and there's been numerous times, whether it be Hawaii or Pepperdine, or when we moved back to California, that God showed up and was so faithful in ways that we wouldn't have even guessed. And so I think ultimately at the end, it was like, okay, God, there's going to be ways. I don't know them yet. And I don't even know what I don't know. So you're going to reveal them as time goes on, and we'll just sit in that and trust in that. So yeah, it's been difficult, but it's been peaceful. And so I think that's the hard part, is it's like peace in the midst of a storm.
Well, I know God is blessing you guys immensely, and the ministry is going fantastic there. Hey, 2 more questions. The last one will be, what's a leadership tip you have for us? But before that, what's the best thing about Indiana?
Nature. For me, it's the nature. For me, I'm like, I love looking out my window and seeing trees that actually were like grown there and not physically planted. I love that my kids can run around and feel free, and there's animals all over the place, and it just feels like it's way more natural than any place in California that we've lived, where everything's built and everything's constructed and everything's, very tight. And this just feels more freeing. And I love the nature. Like, we have creeks right next to our house. The boys will go to the lake and go fishing. And I just love that. And I grew up having a farm experience every summer. And so for me, I love that aspect about being here. It reminds me of that.
Ken's still thinking?
No, I agree with that. Yeah, absolutely. It's cool. Like we have a 7-year-old and 9-year-old boys, and like we'll finish dinner and they want to go fishing in our neighborhood. They can walk, a couple 100 yards and go fishing at a lake. And we as parents can just look out the front window and see, okay, they're still there. They're doing fine, and just let them go fishing. Like at that young age, we wouldn't have been able to do that in Southern California.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly not. It depends on where you are, though, I guess.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for sharing that. Maybe some people right now are just feeling God's calling them to Indiana. I guess if you want to go to Hawaii, you start in Indiana. So if you want to go the other direction, get the good stuff, the good weather out of the way first. Hey, what's one leadership tip you'd have for anybody that's listening to this?
Oh, man. I didn't know we're going to have one. We had thought through a bunch of different potential things. I'm going to go with a family one, something for people's families. So Doug Jeffrey was the lead pastor of Beach Point Church when Bill Safuri was a kid. I think when you were a kid,
mm-hmm.
He was your pastor. And so we got to meet with him before he passed away, and just asking, him and his wife had shared what they, in their ministry, hey, what was, a lesson that we could learn from them? And his wife had shared that one regret she had in ministry was not giving their kids the first cookie. And so she explained that she would make all these cookies or a bunch of brownies or whatever it was for the church. And a kid would run into the kitchen and reach for the cookie, and she smacked the kid's hand and said, "No, that's for the church." And she said, looking back on it later, she wishes that she had given her kids the first cookie. And that became a metaphor for us of just, hey, we want our kids to experience the blessings and the privileges of being a family in ministry. But we also want them to learn responsibility and hard work and not be entitled little brats. So we try to balance both those things. But we want our kids to feel like, hey, I'm speaking at the high school camp, and like our kids can go and be a part of it and hang out with high school kids. Like that's a privilege and blessing that you get to do because our family is in ministry and I'm the pastor of the church, or our kids will run around the church, on Sunday mornings and feel like they're at home. Like we want them to feel like it's a blessing. We want them to love the church and the body of Christ. So that has become a metaphor for us of like, we want our kids to feel like they get the first cookie.
That's powerful. That's powerful.
Yeah, for me, trying to like sum it up into a golden nugget when I feel like there's 500. But I would say one thing is for us, and the way that we've kind of lived our life, is that ministry is much more of a lifestyle than a career or a job. And what I mean by that is like, because ministry is people, like people's lives are constant and they're all over the place and they can be messy and they can be whatever. And so recognizing that it's not something where, for Ken especially, he can just say, hey, these are my hours and this is when I'm only working. And then me being okay with that, and how do you jive as a family with that kind of lifestyle? And so figuring out, yes, there has to be the boundaries and there has to be the rest time and there has to be, the family time. And yet at the same time, life is messy and life is fuzzy. And so what does that look like? And just recognizing that ministry is a lifestyle and not necessarily a career. And so for me, that's really important. And I love that aspect of it, as long as the boundaries are in place and as long as the priorities are in place. And I think that if in the same way, if you look at Jesus's lifestyle, like it wasn't like, well, here's my set time to do ministry. It's like, no, he's on his way to do something else and something interrupts. And it's like, well, that's an interruption. And then there's other times where he's like, no, I need to go be with my Father. And in the same way, I think that that's how we have to run our life when we're in ministry. Is there's times and places where we say, nope, we got to do this. And other times where it's like, yeah, we're going to deal with interruptions, and just recognizing that that's part of ministry as a career, and being okay with that and figuring out how that works best for your family and for time with kiddos and time with your spouse. And so for me, I'd say that's been huge.
Great stuff. Great stuff. Well, thank you guys. I feel like grabbing some cookies and going fishing right now. That's what I want to do. Taking some people with me. Thank you so much. Mercy Road Church, you're the northeast location. Keep up the good work. Thank you guys so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining the Leading Conversations podcast. We hope that you found it both helpful and encouraging. At Excel Leadership Network, our focus is on the church planter rather than the church. If you'd like to find out more about us, visit our webpage at excelnetwork.org. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. See you next time with another Leading Conversation.